You are now live.
May I ask Abby or Julia, but I'll start with Abby. So Abby, on the draft, the highlighted paragraph B at the end, with the first 10 million of remaining unreserved and undesignated monies for the purposes of PCB, could you explain, you or Julia explain why that's necessary to have in there?
Yes, absolutely. So for the record, Abby Shepherd, Office of Legislative Counsel, the reason why that language on page 2 is highlighted is that you have not discussed that particular provision. This is what was in a proposal in the Senate Education Committee. What that subdivision B would do is it would look at any unreserved and undesignated monies in the ed fund left over at the end of this fiscal year 22 and would take the first $10 million of those undesignated monies and dedicate them, reserve them for the purposes of PCB remediation. You have not discussed that in this committee, so that's why that language is highlighted.
And in this construct, this be in addition to the 45 million that we are putting in a reserve fund?
I believe that is correct because the 45 million, and Julia is nodding, the 45 million is in fiscal 23. So the 10 million would be whatever is left over from fiscal year 22.
And so Julia, would that, the way that would work is if we were to adopt this, would that $10 million be put in the same fund where the 45 million already is? So it would become 55 million if there were unreserved funds at the end of this year?
Julia Richter, Joint Fiscal Office. I am not sure if it would be put into the same reserve. This language, I'm familiar with it because it was being discussed in Senate Education, as Abby mentioned, and they were not discussing the other appropriation. So I'm not sure.
Okay. Graham, do you know? I mean, how it would work?
No, I've seen this language before, but I guess what I would say here is at least the construct that's being created within the yield within the education balance sheet that is being showed to you by Julia is that money's being set aside. It's not as if there's like a fund being created right now for PCB remediation. So the questions that I have about this language here is, after satisfying all the requirements at the end of fiscal year 22, if there is, money left over, then this money is going somewhere, but it's unclear to me, what fund I guess it's going to. It is, I guess it would go into the education fund. I don't know whether you specify it go.
I wonder if they thought of this language before they knew we were putting the 45 million in. Or if it's not before they already knew we were doing it when they came up with this language?
When this language was being discussed in committee, I believe that it was sort of two conversations. So one, they were thinking about the 40 million or 45 million or whatever the committee decided to do. And then also, if there was more money coming into the education fund, then setting aside those first $10 million also for PCBs.
I see. Okay. So it is also a plus.
We can leave that in because that's something we can talk about. And maybe we might want to dedicate money elsewhere. Because this is not the end of the road. That's the first time I've seen it, is when I saw the amendment that Elizabeth St. James sent over. But I think it's expressing the anxiety of the Education Committee that we have adequate money to cover PCBs and it is a top priority.
So another, if I may, sorry, Abby, all of you. So if we have the yield bill plus the education fund outlook, we don't have to put in the yield bill each of the appropriations, do we? Is that the education fund outlook does that for us. Is that right? It's not required to be in statute as
It's
well.
already been spent.
The
Well,
education, go ahead,
go ahead.
Abby. Oh.
Thank you. I was just going to say there are other bills with those with that appropriation language in them. So it is not that there is no appropriation being made. It's just happening in another vehicle.
Oh, what? Oh, I see. So like S100 has the 25 million. For example.
Exactly.
Okay, of course. Thank you.
It's a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
And the reason that those bills are included in the education fund outlook is for our modeling purposes to see what the state of the education fund is.
Yes, of course. Okay, thank you.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Senator Bray is talking to the Senate office. I want to wait for him to come back. And Senator Pearson, are you with us? You are. Okay. So
I would move.
Well,
Are you ready
Senator
for
Bray isn't here. Faith, can you drop him a text and tell him we need him?
There he is.
There he is. He's here.
Come
Okay.
back, Pearson.
All right. Senator Bray. We can't hear you, Senator. I think Senator Heidi was about to make a motion.
Yes, I'm saying yes.
Oh, we haven't made the motion or anything.
Let's let Senator Heidi make the motion.
I move passage of draft 1.1 of H737. The date is 5/5/22.
Okay, and that is our,
He's-
what you're moving is to amend.
To amend, correct, to amend
737.
Sorry about that.
737 as passed by the House with draft 1.1. And it's a strike
It's
goal.
dated
Well,
5,
no, it's not.
5/22 at 2:47 PM.
Graham
All right, Graham, before we do something, yes.
Before you vote on this bill, I guess from JFO's perspective, the language here includes 45 million for funding PCBs, and then it also has the 10 million. At least I'm not aware, and I'm not sure, I think Julie is not aware of a bill that actually appropriates the money other than this yield bill. And so I just want to flag that for the committee, that in other places there, for instance, for school meals, there's S100 with an actual appropriation. So
Okay, there's no other bills.
there's no other bill for this money. And so I guess what I would say is it is, I don't know whether there's language around a program for PCB testing, or there's,
No, there's nothing, and I know that's a concern for the chair of appropriations in the House.
Well, I think Beth St. James sent over some language. Abby, I don't know if you've
Yeah, that's
seen
what
it.
Abby based it off of, and it had the,
Oh, I see. Okay.
but
Yep,
there
you're right.
is, that money is not in the miscellaneous ed bill.
So to be clear, it doesn't necessarily matter for the purposes of the yield bill, because the yield bill is just essentially it helps make sure that the revenues that you were spending out of the ed fund are matching the
Right.
spending that is there. But the 45 million and the 10 million here, it is raising sort of a yellow flag for me about, whether this is, where does it go? I guess it's in the ed fund, but I don't know exactly if there's a program stood up for it or anything like that.
Okay,
So
Pearson, I think. Senator Pearson, do you have a?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering why we wouldn't put together a quick paragraph that calls for, holding this in reserve and to be used by the agency of ed in, its work to help schools analyze and remediate PCBs. I mean, just something that satisfies that answer. I don't think anyone believes we're going to need details at some level. So maybe it's enough to just hold it. But why wouldn't we include that here? I mean,
I think you're right. I think we're really pushing this and probably we should wait.
I think we should, I agree with Chris that we should have language in this bill. And maybe we should say something like the Agency of Education shall establish guidelines or rules or something, because the priorities, because there also is a lot of questions about how do you prioritize who gets it. So we need to have the agency come up with, figure out how to use this money.
Yeah, I guess what I'm sort of saying here is I read this language here to be similar to what was created last year for the pre-funding for teachers OPEB. You all set that money kind of aside, but it was not actually, pre-funding of OPEB was not actually done at the passage of last session. It was done this session in S286. And so I read this as sort of saying, you know, as long as the committee knows that I don't know if this money is actually going to be, you know, put into PCBs unless there's like a program stood up for it. It's really just being sort of set aside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's being set aside, and I think that's okay because we don't have the results back to know what the next step is.
So Graham, do you think we need language in this bill then that has more details like was just suggested, or is this sufficient to set it aside, knowing that we're probably not even going to spend it until next session, you know, or even later?
Yeah, understood. If you're going to go with the same construct as the OPEB pre-fund that you did last year, just using PCBs instead, then I think it's fine. I just wanted to make sure the committee was aware that it's not as if you are going like, you know, there's going to be a bunch of PCB testing going on this year that'll be funded out of this, because it's not, I'm not aware of a bill that creates a program or anything like that to, you know, reimburse anyone. It's really just a sort of set aside like you did last year.
Yeah, I believe the money for testing was 5 million, and that I thought was appropriated, and the testing in the budget last year. So the testing money is there. This is saying if we've got some extra money, we're going to set it aside for after that testing, the anticipated cleanup costs. But the testing was in the budget last year. And I believe it's in process. So we're probably all right the way this is.
I think so. I think it's, I didn't mean to raise alarm. I just wanted to make sure the committee was knowing that like, this was not really setting up a program of any sort. It was really just setting aside money as a reserve for a future legislative initiative.
Right. So yeah, it's always good to watch us. We've been here a long time and we make mistakes, lots of them. So,
Madam Chair,
yes.
Suggesting we go with the draft 1.15,
Yes.
22
yes,
of 247 this afternoon.
yes. And Senator Hardy has moved that.
Yep.
All right. So further discussion on that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
Chris Pearson, are you there to vote?
Driving.
He's gonna stop driving and.
Or that truck.
Don't get into a car accident.
It's probably in the Bolton flats that we've lost.
We do have a quorum without.
We do have a quorum.
Did Senator
yes.
Brock vote? Did you vote?
I did not, because I wasn't here for the entire discussion, so for all intents and purposes, I'm out of the room.
So
Okay.
you're absent. So I've got.
Oh, there's
Senator Pearson. Yeah, yield. Yeah.
Can you vote yes on the yield or vote anything on the yield?
Done.
Oh, he's
No,
not.
I told you he's in the Bolton flats.
It's the same motion that Senator Hardy made 15 minutes ago, same draft.
He's
Yes.
gone.
He's gone.
Okay, so
Lost
we
it
just
completely.
have
So I've got
He's
1,
back.
3,
We're good.
4.
He's
There he is
back.
again.
There he is.
Did you vote?
We're waiting for you.
Aye.
Hi.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so that is 601. All right.
Thank you. Sorry,
Thank you.
when I turn,
Report that. All I've got to do is get
Till 6:45.
copies. So Abby, can you mail our Faith
did you
email
vote
me
to
a
amend?
clean copy of the amendments?
Did we vote?
Pardon?
Did we vote to amend and to advance both votes?
Oh, no, we haven't voted. Michael, come back.
You paid for something else?
Yeah, we need to vote to
Move the bill.
approve the bill as amended.
Oh, yes.
Senator Hardy, would you like to make that motion?
Oh, yes,
It is
move
late
to vote the bill as amended by us.
by us. Okay, further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Us votes yes.
Okay, opposed say no. That is 601 and we're done. And Abby, or Faith, if you can email a printed copy, I will get it upstairs to the secretary's office.
Abby, do I have a clean copy?
I will send you a copy without highlighting.
Printed.
Okay,
going to
that'd be
email
great.
that
I'll
now.
print it then.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're gonna
Thanks.
print it.
Senator Cummings, are you ready to go off live?
I'm ready to go off live. We are done for the day.
And